right? So how many ways can you win now?
A lot.
Yeah.
Our calendar invite did not say anything about learning math, Andy, or
Well, that's
thinking in
Turns out
okay.
fourth
Andy's good at
Exact.
dimension.
So
tricking people into learning. He tricks people into
that
learning.
was
That's what
that
our
was
feedback was from our data workshop.
I took it as a compliment, but for us to care, but not when you say it that way. It's like he tricked us. It sounds so negative, but yeah. Okay. How about that's not the plan?
Mhm.
Like here's an idea. Here's your list of thought. Okay. So we were just in Stehekin, we as the ESD, right? And here's their class. Do you see that?
There's their entire school district.
That's their entire school district. Minus there is, I think, one or two students, one for sure, who's a kinder, who's in a different um like, having a different experience right now. Like I think there's a the old teacher that the previous teachers there has a pull out with the younger guy, the pre-K, I think. So there's one student missing, but yes, that is their FTE student population. Okay. And so when we were up there, I was thinking we have multi-leveled age kids there. So from first grade, I don't see the kindergartner, from first grade up to eighth grade, working on an activity around genetic variation. Okay, which is coming from an eighth grade kit that we was part of our kit cooperative. I don't remember the name of it, but that's
It's an
it.
open
So
SciEd
the
kit.
wondering, I'm sorry, what, Cari? I
It's
missed
an
it. Sorry to
open
interrupt.
SciEd kit. It doesn't matter.
Open. Okay, so the idea that okay, this represents multi layers or multi levels of kids coming in with experience around, in this case, genetics or in mathematics. So every day they have this leveled out understanding. You got kids that are first graders to eighth graders. So the wondering that I had was a lot of the times we come into classrooms or we're in systems level meetings or we're with teachers, they say, we have kids in the eighth grade that are below their grade level in their understanding of the eighth grade information, or we have kids in fifth grade that are at a second grade level, right?
Hmm.
So the wondering is what are some, like, this is a system, granted small, different community, all the things, but there's some things that they're doing that they're able to do. And I'm wondering if there are parts of this small system with multi grade level groups and ages of how old they are. Can we connect that somehow to their same age or same grade, but different levels of learning? And they were able to kind of work through a lot of things. This is one of their board. This is an activity. It's a three-dimensional tic-tac-toe. They're all different grade levels. They're all working on the things. They all entered it wherever they could. So like that story is what we're trying to help out with other teachers. Like, yes, they're all well, but you are sharing that they're able to do things. So what are you doing to give them access at wherever they are? And if that's the point, if that's the entry point, is that the part where the teachers and people we have to think about the professional learning around that? What are your opportunities that kids can come into the conversation around whatever it may be, so they feel like they are a part of something? So that was one of the things that I've been wondering about last couple of months as I
Well,
as I
it's
came there. So
I think it puts a premium on the intended learning, right? Like I was part of leading a professional development on Monday. Um, and we have teachers from across the state and really K-12, and they're all learning about blended learning. And the chief complaint we get from teachers when it comes to blended learning or universal design for learning, we do PD around that, is that it just looks very different for primary than it does for like high school. So it's better to be with those primary teachers. But so as a way to accommodate that, we ran a fishbowl on Monday, and we had them like self-select where they were at in their learning on a specific topic around blended learning. It was like fostering engagement within the system. And so it wasn't necessarily about like I'm going to be talking, like I need to talk to other first grade teachers about implementing in my first grade classroom. It was I get the chance to talk about what this looks like and have other people listen to me. And then more importantly, I get to listen to other people talk about the problems and then find those similarities in there. Like that's that multiple points of action and expression and access and engagement, right? So that makes like, and it made me think of like my own classroom when like I was doing self-paced learning, and the thing I really struggled with and did not do a good job with was collaboration, because I'd always ask myself, how do you get kids to collaborate on something when they're not working on the same, I think product would have really been what I should have been saying. Like they're not working on the same lesson, so how are they supposed to collaborate? And I think the shift in thinking there, which I didn't realize until I was out of the classroom, was if I had them collaborating on the standard and not the product of their work, then that would have made that a whole heck of a lot more possible. Does that apply there? Like, I don't know what three-dimensional tic-tac-toe is, but is that kind of like what you're talking about with those students?
You played tic-tac-toe before, right?
Well, I played tic-tac-toe. I haven't played
Right.
3D tic-tac-toe.
Okay. So the question is, how many ways can you win? How many ways can you win on a 3D tic-tac, excuse me, a two-dimensional tic-tac-toe? How many ways can you win?
Oh, now we're talking. Look at this.
How many ways?
I
I
mean,
think it's a good shift.
across, down, diagonal,
So 1, 2, 3,
4, 5, 6,
4, 5, 6,
7,
7,
8.
8.
Yes.
So there's 8 ways that I can win on tic-tac-toe. So the question is, there's a game out there where I take these boards and I have one board this way, one board this way, one board this way, and I can have a three-dimensional win by putting a X in that middle, an X in that middle, and an X in that middle, and go 3D vertically.
Down. That just seems really mean.
Right? So how many ways can you win now?
A lot.
Yeah.
Our calendar invite did not say anything about learning math, Andy.
Well, that's
Turns out
so
Andy's good at
exact. So
tricking people into learning. He tricks people into learning. That's what
that
our
was
feedback was from our data workshop.
I took it as a compliment, but for us to care, but now when you say it that way, it's like he tricked us. It sounds so negative, but yeah. But that's right. Yeah. How do you so the question is there's first graders thinking about this to eighth graders thinking about it. And then we got into a math thing. So same idea. There's kids that have like we've done this out with classrooms, kids that have like the language barrier, like or we did it with grad students from all across the world. Like
I just point out that this is a math thing. You said then we got into a math thing, and I'm like, this is a math thing.
Thank you for clarifying that. But like an actual, you mentioned standards, Stefan, right? We got into the standards of fractions and everyone, that we made it more, but it was still the same idea. So how many ways can we win? And that's what we start. That's what it was. That way we did it for a half an hour, right? And we left it, and we didn't give the answer, but we just said, now that you have the model of how we're going to interact with each other, let's do another type of an activity. So, and I know you're thinking about it.
Well, I'm interested how this worked with those students. So like you walk me through that day out there in that district, and
so you want to
I want to know what you did with these students.
All right. So should I stop sharing here or should I get up? Is that easier?
No, I mean, keep sharing because the visual model helps, but also keep in mind that I'm probably going to turn this into like we could put it on YouTube, but I'll probably turn this into an audio format only
Sure.
also. So um
Yeah,
be very descriptive with what we're
I
saying.
gotcha. Okay, so we were up when we started off. I was going to model some of the stuff that we've been working on at the state level with our coordinators. Cari and I have been trying it out in different contexts. You know, this building thinking classroom practices, and without getting into too much information about that or that whole tangent, the idea that we wanted to have kids working together in groups of three that were randomized, and that small group we just kind of, all right, you three, you three, you three. So it was my first time up there, and then they're up at a board, and we brought them all together, and I said, and Michelle Elaine was our person up at Tahican, who was a coordinator here at the ESD. And so, and they knew this was her second year there. And I was like, hey, everybody, you know, Miss Lelaine and I used to work together. And what we used to do all the time is we'd have tic-tac-toe tournaments, you know, which is, you know, not true, but kind of true. We'd played games and stuff. We worked together and stuff, but it was a good little hook that they got it. And then I said, and she told me that she could beat you all in tic-tac-toe, the normal tic-tac-toe. And so we had her versus the class. And we put up, I just, you know, just like this. So if it's you and I, let's say Cari and Stefan, you are going against each other in tic-tac-toe. All right. Cari, you get to go for, there we go. So there's, who's that? Is that Stefan? Is that Cari?
That was me.
Okay, so there's Cari. Stefan, I like how you chose circles to begin. That's interesting.
Is it?
Ooh,
What
it
is
is.
interesting about me choosing a circle?
Because I thought X's usually go first, don't they? Maybe
I
not.
don't know the rules
Uh-oh,
of
here we go.
tic-tac-toe. What do I know?
Well, we're good. This is good.
All right, for if this is an audio, why did you go there? If
Yeah.
So that you
Well,
couldn't
and
beat me?
Oh, if we're being honest, I didn't even I didn't see that. I was not going to beat you. There
now
was
we're cat
no
themed. Okay,
worry.
so all right. If we would have gone and you would have played along, someone would have won, right? But if you
No,
because
cats.
the cat won this game. All right. So cat
Cats.
game. And so you know, so no one wins. It's a
Okay.
push.
It's always a
Cat
tie
game.
if you're paying attention. Gotcha.
Steph, have you not heard a cat game before? Like,
Maybe. I mean, not a big
um,
tic-tac-toe guy here.
okay, so the history of the cats is what we should talk about next. That's way better, I think. So, how many chances? And then I asked the question: how many ways, how many ways can you win in tic tac toe? And so we talked about that already. We have one, two, whoa,
Pretty sweet.
two. It doesn't stay with the line. Two, three. Why does it do that? I don't know. You get that. So three, one, two, three, four, five, six. So we got the verticals, the horizontals, like you mentioned, and then the two diagonals. So we have 8 ways that you can get 3 in a row, X's and O's, to win tic-tac-toe.
Mm-hmm.
So the question then, the prompt was, but now that the new game that we wanted to start playing with you all is the 3-dimensional version of tic-tac-toe, where you have those 3 two-dimensional boards on 3 different planes or 3 different levels, and you still have that time to place an X or an O in any one of those levels in any one of those planes, but you can now win in a 3-dimensional fashion. So you could have one layer that's this first up top. Ooh, what's that one? Let me get to a different. I'm sure you could help me find the 3-dimensional images here on this whiteboard, but let's just go. If I have my first dimension up top, or excuse me, level, that's a game board.
Okay.
And then I have my second.
So if
That's a
anybody's
game board.
listening, Andy has drawn a square towards the top of the screen and then one right below it. And then
And
that is not a square. I don't know what happened, but that square, that's a
I'm sorry, I forgot that we okay. Art, I've always said art is my growth area. I'm trying to grow. but you see the three-dimensional nature of those images, right? And each of these images has our tic-tac-toe board on it. And
Yes.
that's super difficult. And so we talked about that as well. So I could win there on that board normally. So up on that first board, how many ways can I win just on that first level?
On just in that first level, we said
Just
8.
8. So I can win 8 ways up there. How many ways can I just win on this second level?
8.
Oh, can we play a round of this?
It might take for a while because you have, I mean, we can try it. Do you want to?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So,
I would
and
like
then,
to point out that while Andy is walking us through this, you do not walk students through this. They have to come up with this thinking. You
Tell
don't tell
me.
them like these levels or
yeah.
anything. You just tell them
Oh,
how many
okay. So,
ways can you win in a three-dimensional tic-tac-toe board. And
okay.
this is
So,
Andy's thinking, but this is what you would see students thinking, maybe, if this is how they thought about it.
okay. So, all right. Hold on. The here on the left is the tic-tac-toe board, and would you walk them through that?
Yeah.
How many can you, and you have them discover out loud?
The two-dimensional one was what we all did together.
Okay.
The instructor played with the kids one-on-one, and I did that with Michelle Elaine with her kids, her first graders through eighth graders, and then we went back and we did it with Dr. Gotch at WSU and all of his graduate seminar folks. And that's what I said. I went to school with Dr. Chad, and we would go down to Rico's and Pullman, and we would have tic-tac-toe game night time. And it was, and then, but he said he could beat any one of you guys. And so they did it. And this one, like right out of the gate, a student goes, tic-tac-toe. So we had to explain what the game was.
Gotcha.
And then they did the two-dimensional version. And then I said, okay, now in your groups, and Cari brings up a good point. It was just think of it three-dimensionally, where you have 3 layers of these images of laying on top, and you can win multiple ways now.
And that's all you said, and then you
That's
made
all I
them
said.
figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I did not give them a visual model. I wanted them to see if they could visualize what that looks like, give them the chance to visualize three-dimensionally, because that's in itself, like you're thinking, like we're talking it through, was a tough thing to comprehend.
So, and you've got first through eighth graders, they like turn and talk with each other, and then you walk around and listen. Give me like a snapshot. Give me like now they're at, like, maybe they're creating themselves, right? That like stand up whiteboard.
Yeah. So let me see if I have a good, yeah. So go ahead.
When I've done this with adults, though, yes, the whiteboard is there, but there's a whole lot, and people won't be able to see Andy potentially, but there's a whole lot of hand gesturing. There's a whole lot of this, and then
Putting your hands on top of each other and then trying to make those. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So there's lots of gestures as they're learning, not necessarily everything going on the whiteboard, and you'll see that in the room.
So this is like one group setting it up. So we work groups of pairs here because they're so small. And let me see if I could throw another example. So I'm just showing like a group of students just kind of doing the two-dimensional tic-tac-toe. And then they led them to think about the visualization or develop that model of what that looks like three-dimensionally. And a lot of folks start thinking about it as a cube, like a Rubik's cube. And let me see if I can see that one on here.
So does that mean then, like, if you're playing three-dimensionally, does that mean then, like, with these models you've drawn here, and if it's a cube, then you also have a board here on the side?
No, that's the part where we had to adjust our thinking. That I don't have a board over here, right?
Okay.
But I could put an X. I can grab. I don't know how you make those X's.
If you go over to the little smiley face in the sidebar on the left-hand side.
Okay.
There's stickers.
Okay. So if I have an X here, then on that same middle board, I could have that X on the corner of the second right there.
Okay. And
Okay.
so I got it. And I think maybe I'm getting into the nuance of the game, because now my next question is, what is the you've got first through eighth graders talking and reasoning. What's the like mathematical learning that's intended here for your students?
Okay, yeah. So there's two things. We're trying about the practices. So it was new for them to get up vertically on the boards to work in partners like this. So this was just an initial kind of, let's practice sharing markers. Let's practice capturing each other's thoughts on a dry erase board up front. So if I can make mistakes, they were making mistakes all left and right. So we were working really within the practices of the mathematical standards and science standards, of like trying to persevere through some ideas. We're modeling visually a new way of thinking about it. We made some adjustments. So it was just like, let's work together for a half an hour on this tic-tac-toe idea. And they started getting we nudged some things, and the practices talk about, oh, this group over here, let's take this group and let's go join this little small group and listen in on how they're thinking about this task. And we got some information, and then we went back and we tried it out on our own. So this initial part was just to consider like how we're working together in groups, because it was a new strategy of working together. And then it was a way for them to start thinking about, how can I visualize something three-dimensionally, or take something in a 2D and then think about it 3D. That was the intent, to get them thinking this way. So what was the standard on it? Like, I don't know if it was they're looking at patterns, they're looking at connecting different types of visualization and modeling. How do they develop this model? So you can kind of see that there's like someone thought about it as a cube for a little while, but they came to the connection that you made, and there's not a game board on each side of the face. It's more of a three-dimensionally layered, where I can then interact with these levels differently. So not necessarily as a volume problem, it's more of a orientation problem. So I don't know if I really answered that question, because there wasn't it was the practices, it was and communication, and getting them comfortable of trying something new, of getting together in small groups, which they haven't had the chance to experience before. So.
What it makes me think about watching you do number talks, right? I mean, that's the same
idea. Yep.
Same, yeah. Okay, so yeah, same idea, right? Where it's like, hey, here's these dots, and how many dots were there, and then how did you get there? And the whole point is kids thinking about like the way they're making sense of images in front of them, and making sense of and like, correct me if I'm wrong, but the intended walk away from that is like, oh, there's multiple ways to see like a solution to this problem, or like people are seeing these things differently. And so I feel like that's something I hear math people say all the time. Math and science probably is like thinking about multiple angles to solving a problem. Some of those crucial math practices. Okay.
Yeah, and what they have the connection from before too is they all know that there's 8 ways to solve it in the 2D plan, right? And so they make that connection like you all did too, like, oh, 8, 8, 8. So there's at least 24 ways to win.
What?
But then they start thinking about vertically, three-dimensionally, diagonal, and there's and then about halfway through this, just to get them comfortable with working together, we paused them in all the sense, and like I said, okay, all right, capture your thinking. Let's take down some ideas of how many you think there's correct numbers, and you'll get everything from 29 to one time I got, what was it, 8 cubed. Like that was an answer of 500. It was some, to like 97 to whatever. And so we just leave it at that. We capture all those numbers and okay, cool. We'll keep that there. Let's transition into something a little bit, another activity, another task. that now that we have the practice down to say, oh, I'm going to share my thinking, I'm going to capture my ideas, we're going to be able to make mistakes and persevere, and we're going to do something a little bit different. This one's around we're thinking about we're having a sale. There's the Stehekin has this beautiful bakery there. That's wonderful. And I said, hey, my daughter is a baker as well, and we're thinking about starting up some, a fundraiser drive, but we're going to think about making cakes and then cutting them up into different parts and then selling those. But it costs $10 to make one cake, and we're going to start cutting them up in different. There's this way that we can cut. We want to sell each piece at a certain price, and so we start layering out a different task around cake pieces and their price and how much of the cake is cut up and how much of the price should we charge, and then we get into some more of the fractions and percentages and those kinds of things. But the idea for them to be comfortable with this practice and then getting them in there and pausing them, they're like, well, what's the answer? How many is there? What's the answer? Like, well, we'll come back to it. And that was the most frustrating thing that I've ever seen, kids and adults. You're not going to tell us what the answer is, which is good, but no, we'll do it later. But that was hard. Like, I was like, this is your initial thought idea. Let's just hold that for a while. And it's okay. Like the squirming, the irritation, of not knowing the right thing was another whole thing to consider. Like, wow, can we just pause for a moment and just think about this differently, or put that to the side? But anyways, and then at the end when I was leaving, they're like, hey, what's the answer?
I don't know.
You tell me. So I don't know if that kind of gets the thing. So that the idea that we have all these different people thinking about this, engaged in this non-curricular task of three-dimensional tic-tac-toe, which they've had around. Like, there's different examples of this. There's a site that we've done this with teachers, and kind of think of it differently about how do we win here, and just get them thinking about their ideas and capturing it. And then before you know it, they're like, okay, that was it, overdone. Oh yeah, that was it. We've been doing math for about an hour, and that understanding of just like, wow, that was interesting. Like, that went by fast. Like, hearing that part, then
so that's a good point. Like, we've been doing math for about an hour. It has me thinking about the conversation we were having earlier. If you have teachers who are let me ask this a different way. How do you approach resistance to these types of practices or activities in a teacher's classroom?
For me, and then would love to hear what Cari had to say too. But for me, when we do these things, it's always feels like we want to try something in a classroom, number talks, a different strategy, because we have to almost prove that it will work in their system or with their kids, right? So initially, there's like, that won't work with our students, or that won't work I don't have enough time, or whatever it may be.
So right? I don't have the time, I would think
different, or there's all the, I don't have the time to do something different because, this is something that's different, so there's a little bit of that pushback initially, but showing, like you mentioned, number talks, which is another strategy that it's been around since I've been a part of the coaching and teaching and learning for mathematics and science. There was a whole cohort here in the state of Washington that just focused on number talks. But when you do that, the same idea, it's like, you have to model it a little bit with the teachers, and then they maybe feel a little bit more opened up to then the idea to let that new strategy or a modification of something that they've had before, or really get down to the purpose of the why we do a number talks. Why do we have kids up like this? Like, what is the foundational why about it? And then you see them having conversations, and then the teachers usually lean in and go, wow, that student has never spoken before, or that student, I had no idea the kid thought that way, or, oh my gosh, that the dual language learner and was able to share. And it was like, yeah, because the purpose is to build the confidence. It's the purpose to have them share and practice sharing their thinking in a safe environment. So like, once the purpose is lined up, then the teachers feel like, oh, well, I think I can fit that
To
in.
say
And
it's
it's
usually
not,
just a matter of then let's go try it. Can we at least try it? Let's try it with the students and then make your decision. But more than once too. You can't just try it once and be like, well, that was a fail. Because kids need, like Andy already described, if they haven't worked in groups before, if they haven't had an opportunity to share their thinking, it's kind of bumbly and awkward and can go badly. But you shouldn't give up after just one effort, I think. So my push is always just try it. Just give it a try before you just decide that it's not going to work.
I'm out of
we
questions.
just, we were just in, I just did number talks at Bridgeport. And again, with a fellow who's been trying to change the system, so it's a perfect, like, couple of years been in the fellows program, thinking about integrating or some of her leadership within the system, an intervention program. Then there was the connection with Aussie and SIP goals about, you know, student discourse is written into their SIP goal, right? So then what does that look like in math and ELA and all areas? And so we just started with this, a routine that gets kids comfortable sharing and having conversation. Like, that was the starting point. And it was the same idea. How do you get kids comfortable sharing during their math time or their core time or whatever it may be? And it's not that typical, like, oh, here's math again. Like, because you feel that places, and you feel like you hear teachers say it, you hear kids say it. I'm not a math person, or I was never good at math, but now I'm teaching second grade, or I'm teaching middle school, or whatever. It's like, okay, that we have to work on that as just a human, about growth mindset a little bit, but then showing the kids a chance to say, oh, I see those 7 dots. This is how I see them. I see those ideas, like you mentioned, Stefan, of like, those the number talks. Those are important things, and you can do it 5 minutes, and it gives the kids the confidence. You can see it in their classroom, their shoulders raise up, and their smile on their face, and they're high-fiving. And I added to my sticker collection. I got, Hello Kitty on my badge, and I got 2 new shark ones the other day because they felt like they had to give me a sticker, and I'm like, cool. Why? I don't know. I mean, I love stickers, and the kid's like, that kid has never said a word. And I go, it's October, right? That's where it's like, okay, something's working. And it's like the strategy, it's the opportunity, it's the setup, it's the culture. And now how do we build off on that? And they really consider, like, okay, I got to have them more talking, because now I can build off of it. Because when I get to how do I make a double double, or how do I make a fraction, or how do I interact with whatever content standards, they've at least had some exposure to trying on how to share. So that's where I've seen teachers. And then that leads to that next coaching component of, okay, where do we go? It's not the, like, we have them look at, when we go in there, we have the teachers look at not what the instructor of Stefan, Andy, or Cari, or whomever's, what they're doing, but think about it with the lens of what the kids are doing. What are the students interacting with? How are they engaging with? What strategies do you hear them say? What language were they using? What are the vocabulary words that you're doing? And we're not going to pause and correct them. It's that formative, like, oh, okay, they used rectangle a lot. I haven't taught them rectangle, but that's something you could build on, right? Or they use this idea about, I notice, and they touch count quite a bit, which means I take my finger and I touch the object and I call it out 1, or I roll the dice and it rolls on a 6 bips or whatever they're called, and I touch each bit and go 1, 2. That tells me a lot about their number sense of where they're at. And so they can build on that. We share that with them, like, what you're doing here gives you information and a rationale why they may be struggling with their grade level stuff, because their number sense or their learning progression is not where they're at content wise or standard wise or grade level wise. It's way back. And I think that's common everywhere. at least of my where I've been around, I don't think anyone's ready to say, oh yeah, all my kids are right at grade level. They're ready to learn the content standards right now. I mean, have you guys heard that anywhere? I haven't.
No. Yeah, sorry. And I forgot audio format. No, 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 no. I mean, in fact, I hear the opposite a whole lot. Like I've asked the question like 2 or 3 times this week to different people. How much work have your teachers had digging through the standards? And the answer is typically very minimal because we, you know, stick to curriculum or whatever. But yeah, very, very rarely do you hear teachers talking about like their issues being all their kids have mastered the standards. If I'm if I'm a teacher or an instructional coach and this is exciting to me, where do I start?
Can I touch on something that Andy was talking about that maybe is also an answer to your question,
Hmm?
Stefan, but maybe not?
If we turn this into a regular podcast, we could title it Cari asks permission to speak.
Yes, that'd be nice. Um,
What?
so no, you just
What?
my God. I've been waiting 10 minutes. I've literally been watching the clock, literally over here.
What was it?
So, like something that Andy was describing when he is doing the number talk and a teacher can sit back and then their aha is, oh my gosh, that student never speaks in my class. It's one thing to coach like a teacher on how to do something and have them go do it with students. And they may or may not realize what happens, but I think the power in having somebody else do it and having a teacher sit back and watch and have another coach alongside them or another teacher alongside them to have like a moment of awe is really powerful. Because if you're the one leading the number talk, you're trying it for the first time, you don't have an opportunity necessarily to notice the change in student behavior because you're thinking about the next step. You're thinking about, oh, that's what am I supposed to do next? And so there's a lot of power in being able to watch someone else do it with your students. And so I also then would, with a plug, so this is where I think it relates to your question about if I'm an instructional coach, what is my next step, is a plug for the power of recording yourself as a teacher and watching the video and reflecting on your practice, because when you're in it, it's really hard to pick up on all the things because you're making so many decisions in the moment on what is my next step, what am I going to do with this student or that student or whatever. So I think just what I wanted to add was like providing teachers with that opportunity to sit back and watch kids engage in something new and different so that they can understand the why of doing a number talk versus just being told, go, this is how it's done. This is why you do it. To, go out and conquer.